Okay. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode. The title is Questions That Were Faster Than Their Answers. And so, I would like to speak about the speed of subjective experience compared to objective existence. Now, there has been moments where I have sometimes wondered that the mind is moving faster than the body, that the body is being observed. That means as if the mind is engaged with a witnessing activity. The mind is the questioner, is where the question is coming from. The answer is what is found in the content of the mind. It is what the mind sees. If reality from its beginning was divided into two dimensions, let us say mind and body, the body is the objective existence, and the mind, which is the subjective experience, which we can say that includes the experiencer. So if the body was changing before there was a mind, the mind couldn't associate. So we can say that the mind is a faster speed than the body, because if our body was changing, there was nothing to have a mind, no form to have a mind. That means imagine like you're sitting on a, you're standing on like the roof of you're standing somewhere, and the ground underneath you is changing quicker than your feet. So literally before you can take a next step on, let's say wherever, let's say you're walking on the street, before you take a next step, imagine the atoms of that, the particles on that pavement are changing. They change quicker than you. So I feel that the mind is living a faster life. I've talked to many people about this in regards to how I feel the mind is, first of all, the mind is not an object, the mind seems to be an event. And it seems to be an event simultaneously taking place over the body. That means pretty much the mind is, think of it this way, that when you sleep, think of it this way, there's three states to reality. There's the conscious waking state where I'm speaking to you right now. There is the conscious waking state, the dream state where we have dreams, and the deep sleep state. Now, different important points about each one of these states. The deep sleep is where there is no object and there is no subject. In the dream state, the subject creates the object. That means if in a dream, like you're actually kind of experiencing your mind kind of create a body for you, because the body is in the bed and the person is in the dream. Now, if they can move in the dream, if they have a body, a sort of relationship with phenomena in the dream, that means the mind doesn't need a body to give you the experience of a body. That's what it means. That means that your body could be chilling, just sleeping somewhere. You could be sleeping on a plane, airplane, but dreaming that you're walking on the ground, you know? So we can say that in the dream state, we are a mind creating a body. That means our mind moves first, then body arises. Body's just chilling in the bed. Then in the conscious waking state, where I'm giving this talk right now and you're listening to me, in this conscious waking state, the body moves first and it gives the mind a context. Now, when I say the body moves first, it doesn't mean the body is moving faster than the mind. It's kind of like our intelligence is playing a chess game with itself, in the sense that it's letting itself move first. So honestly, I feel it's like we have the brain and the mind are different things. Do you know? The brain is like the antenna, but the mind is witnessing what the antenna receives and gives a signal back. Now, in the conscious waking state is where we have built our civilization. In the dream state, it's not stable ground, it's changes, it's highly evocational. The same way people can have lucid dreams where they can move in the dreams, or some people in the New Age community speak about astral projection and whatnot. All of that, it's just going to come down to the nature of the attention. That means in a dream state, the way you move your attention, you can not only change the way your body is in the dream, like your hands move, or you moving in the dream or flying around in your dream, you can also change the nature of the whole moment. You know, that means I've had dreams where the dream changed in the middle. Literally, it was like, I don't know, one third one kind of dream, two-thirds of the dream, another kind of dream. It was as if like two different dream rooms, or dreamscapes, if you can say that. Landscapes of the dream realms, you know. So, what does that mean? That means as I'm speaking to you, there is the functions of the biological existence, as Immanuel Kant would say, the phenomenon, and then Immanuel Kant has a term where he says noumenon. Now, noumenon is phenomena that is occurring for the direct experiencer rather than the indirect object. Because really, if we are moving an object, are we considering the movement in the object to be the same, or are we considering the mover of the object to be different? Because on some level, we are acting as if like the object and the movement are the same, but we say my mind, we say my body, we say my soul. Who is this my? You know, we say my name. Who's this my? Do you know what I mean? That means whose name um, is that? You know, so it's a level of, you can say, mystery, where man is discovering that his mind doesn't wear shoes. So it's about balance. It's a balance of the objective phenomena and the subjective noumenon. Now, here's my point. If the mind is living another life, and that life is faster, it explains a lot of human psychology. You know, a lot of human psychology, if we look at it as a singular dimension, oh, we're in one world and there's good and bad people, you know, it doesn't make sense. Because the thing is, the good and the bad is a morality, is a spectrum, is a hierarchy imposed. That means there was a time where animals were just animals. There was no good, there was no bad, you know what I mean? There was just like savages, you know. Think of it this way, that human beings, they get entertained by the games that they play, the games that they get exposed to. That means there's some person on the planet trying to, make a certain range of income. Then there's some people who are making a lot of something. Do you know what I mean? So it's like nobody has the same program. Even though we're all in the same world, nobody has the same experience of it. Which ultimately means that you are the commanding officer of your sensory perception. My relationship with the mind has been strange. When I was young, I was introduced to the notion of God and soul, and a lot of stuff was said about that. Not a lot of stuff, but pretty much like, religion had its angle, poetry books had their angle. But for me, the mind was the mystery. That means the soul, the ancients had commentary on it, but the mind, they didn't, you know? They had certain commentary, but they would treat it as lesser, as if beyond the mind there were worlds of life. In Vedanta, the highest loka, the highest dimension of, like, the plane of reality, is a dimension where from the context of the transmigratory soul, between lifetimes, like certain ideologies entertain that, Buddhism, Yoga, Vedanta. It's as if the person reaches a point where they don't need to reincarnate. That means they have the notion of reincarnation, then you reach a point where you don't need to reincarnate. It's as if the hamster stops running in the hamster wheel. Now, how the hamster stops running into the hamster wheel seems to be from no longer having any sort of, I don't want to say any, but it's like no longer fighting over the subject-object duality. Sri Ramana Maharshi says, there will come a time where all that one has learned must be forgotten. All human beings will experience a moment where they will be left alone with just their eyes. So if you get to know your eyes earlier, it's not a bad idea in this plane of existence. Now, if the person thinks they're a subject, you are a part of the content of the moment. You are fragmented. If you think you're just an object, you're also fragmented. If you think you're the subject and object, something strange happens. Either you are an elusive mutation of both of them, you're an illusion of an object and subject simultaneously being, or the subject and the object were never a subject and an object. Only to us they are a subject and object. That means we may be down here, and I'll use the traditional kind of old school model where they would see body, mind, soul, pretty much the dimensions of the human being. Now imagine let us say, entertain the notion that this realm has higher dimensions. Let us say in these higher dimensions, what we think is a mind, to them is another kind of matter, is another kind of substance. So I'm saying that reality could be very different, because it's like we're in one room of a mansion, and we are saying, yeah, we did some tests inside one room of a mansion, and we know what all the rooms look like, or how all the rooms should be. On some level, it is impossible, because the possibilities can be as endless as the research. That means really all of knowledge is mouth noises emerging from silence. To some degree. Right now I'm talking, like, can you imagine an alien coming on this planet and not speaking, like not being able to understand what we say? They'll be like, what are these creatures just making noise all day? But our noises have become our life. Our movements have become our purpose, have they not? You know, guys, I noticed something interesting. When you look at the dictionary, there is when you look at there is the word purpose, but then there isn't the word perposition. I just thought, why isn't that word in the dictionary? You know, that means if you look at purpose, it's as if like the meaning of life when you're in a certain pose. You know, so I would say like if we create a term perposition, Purposition, perposition. You know, that word doesn't exist currently in the dictionary. It would be like the position of purpose. Do you know? That sometimes a person's purpose is limited to the information you have. If you're on an island, your purpose is different, you know? If you're a busy CEO, your purpose is different. Your purpose has to do with the position where the antenna, let us say, of human intelligence is receiving the signals for the day. You know, there's some moments where I just go and sit, just there as any moment in life where I feel like it's coming to a certain static, to a certain stillness and silence. Usually in those moments of stillness and silence, I watch, because the cool thing about life is if the person doesn't do anything and they technically watch life not as a thing, knowledge is there. I'm telling you, the moment you realize you don't know and you have a sort of honesty with what you don't know is when new levels of knowing things can open up. Sometimes life is like you know, object, subject. Let's say it has an object subject lens where you have to think as an object first, then consider the subject. And there's certain moments where you got to think as a subject first, then as an treat yourself as an object. You know, when it comes to animate activity, you need to be a subject first before you're an object. Literally, there needs to be some sort of individualization of a vision. There is this story, guys, where there's this mountain climber, and it's at night, and he's in this strange situation where he's alone on the snowy mountain, and he falls into an unfortunate situation where the rope falls and he can't get back up, and he's just like, you know, connected to this rope hanging from a cliff. He can't do anything. And when he looks underneath him, he sees it's like pure pitch black darkness. Like he can't even see under his feet, literally as if he's hovering above pitch black darkness, you know. And anyways, this mountain climber, what happens is a voice comes to him. This man makes a prayer, and I'd heard this story in a religious context. This man makes a prayer, and voice comes to him, and he makes a prayer. He's like, God help me, what, this is messed up situation, and the voice comes and says, all right, man, like this inner voice arises out of nowhere. Now call it God, call it whatever, call it the inner realms. What it was is that the voice tells the man, cut the rope. And the guy's like, holy sh, like, what do you mean cut the rope? And he's thinking as if he asked for a sign, and then this sentence is clear as if something whispered it to him, is there in his mind, cut the rope. And he looks down underneath, he says it's pitch black, he takes the knife out, he's about to cut the rope, and then he's like, no, this is too messed up, I can't do this. And he can't cut the rope. It's like he doesn't trust the unknown. And the next day, there's a group of hikers just going, and they go around this corner, they're walking, and to their shock, they see the sky. And they see that it was at night, and if this guy had cut the rope, the ground was only like half a meter away from his foot. You know what I mean? That means if he had cut the rope, he would have fallen on ground. He could have gotten out of there, but the guy decided not to cut the rope, and he had frozen and died. And it was this shocking thing that people were seeing. So I feel strangely our species is in a similar situation, our species. What I'm trying to say, guys, is how we are in a similar situation is that our identification with the past is like that rope. Us being in the present is there where we're left there, in the pitch black darkness of the hike, you know, just hanging on from the rope like the story. And at the same time, the future is the suggestion of cutting that rope. What that means is the cutting the past. You see, if you define yourself based on the past, imagine like yesterday you had to, I mean, I just want to say that the past occupies the space of the mind, which for the day is required for the new ideas. So you can say every time, every human being that has been suffering has been filling the space of their minds with comparisons to their past. When you compare yourself to the past, because the past happened in a certain way, it's easy. You have the accurate memory, like who you were, years ago and who you are now. Well, when you want to compare yourself to the future, it's as if you can't see who you are now. At best, you know that you're just sculpting the memory. So, for example, how I give this talk is going to suggest like how I'm going to remember this moment in the future. If we realize we're designing our future self's eyes right now, then people will become really compassionate in the moment. Because honestly, what is there to be violent about? I could totally understand animal instincts, like the savageness of the unconscious animal, but now that we're a conscious animal, it's like the game is different. There's like a different level of intelligence at work. So if we have this kind of sophisticated brain, but we still act like animals in forests, and we are as savage and as animal-like, you know, then it's foolishness. Then it's as if we haven't understood what we have. It's like giving someone a Ferrari and they're just sitting on the Ferrari sun tanning, not realizing that the whole thing is used for a totally different purpose. You know, what we need for the first time is a galactically street smart species. You know, what that means is right now it's just humans. We don't know if there is the potential of alien contact, alien whatever in the future. And what does it even mean, an alien? The concept of an extraterrestrial. Pretty much if we had advanced spaceships and we went to another planet, we'd be like aliens to them. You know what I mean? So there's no such thing as aliens. We're all planetary creatures. We're all aliens to one another, you know? Every person can be said to be a way the universe is looking at itself. I remember I went to India, guys. I'll tell you something hilarious, you know? Um, I remember going to, so I was living there for 2 months in an ashram in Rishikesh called Niketan, I think. Niketan Ashram. It was, so I'm there, and there was this yoga instructor uh, named Vimal, and there was a certain group of people who would do yoga there, you know. And there was also this 60-year-old man who would come to these what do you call it, yoga sessions, like hatha yoga sessions, where you're doing these poses all day. And this 60-year-old man who was there, he was he had the title Mahatma. He would call himself Mahatma and whatnot, seemed to be a very wise person. And Vimal was the yoga teacher, and this kid was very his personality wasn't that pure, but his life decisions had been pure. Do you know? He had pretty much been the ultimate good boy his life, you know. But there was something. So I remember now there was, let's say Mahatma Vimal and another person named, let's call him Tunaji, we would call him there. What happens is we go to this coffee shop called Zorba Cafe in Rishikesh. And we go there and we all go sit at a table, and everybody's trying to be like, that kind of like, wise man austerity, that wise man aura, like I am goodness, And so we're there, and now what happens is suddenly something weird is happening. Now I can't tell because the culture was a bit foreign to me. I couldn't tell if this was they were doing this in front of one another as an act of like trying to show off their righteousness, or they actually were taken seriously. But pretty much what happens is Tunaji, this guy, he comes and sees there's he feels like there's a girl sitting at the back table. I mean, even there were girls sitting at our own table, do you know? But this guy suddenly feels he's seeing something forbidden. He goes up these stairs. Like Tuna, he feels like, oh no, like he's seeing something impure. He goes up the stairs and then he quickly runs back down, as if he went up the stairs. There was maybe a couple or something making up, and he felt he saw something impure, and he even ran down. You know. And so I remember we're sitting at the table, and I'm kind of looking at this a bit like, like holy shit, you know. But the thing is, what's happening is that then I talked to Vimal and Mahatma, and their mentality was very unique. They were like, Vimal says something, and Mahatma VJ Non there was saying, yeah, like acknowledging, agreeing with Vimal. And Vimal says something that it's like yourself, as if in the yogic mind would elevate to a point where there would be such inseparability of self and world that another self was also your world being. You know? That means it was as if the reason the person wouldn't chase sex, because technically it was like, as a collective being, you were, excuse my language, effing yourself, technically, from a metaphysical standpoint, you know? Now, what's funny is, I remember them saying this intensely. Of course, that was a very extreme mindset. Um, I remember them saying this and kind of being very, like, against, desire, worldly desires. But then I remember I go back to Canada, Toronto, Canada, and then I see, like, a year, a bit later, Vimal's gotten married. Even the guy who was running away from the couple who was making out on the roof, the guy. And yeah, and life changes people, and that's the thing. When you realize this, it's just remarkable. It's like, whatever your belief, whatever, it's like your eyes will see so much more that they will inevitably process the realm differently. So the whole point of me sharing that story is that there was a complete shift of mind. They were like subjectively bound beings, but then life changed, and then its next phases opened up, and its whole meaning was different, you know? When we realize that we're multidimensional beings, then we actually are taking the human mind seriously. That means the mind, I can't emphasize this enough, how it's not an object, but we have named it. And some people could be like, what have we named? What is this mind that we have named? What is this consciousness we have named? Do you see the mysteries of it? Even the hard problem of consciousness, why is it that we have, like, conscious control of, like, our body, but certain we can't control other processes of the body? Do you know what I mean? Why is it that certain pain we process? Why couldn't we have been designed as beings to become numb to our own pain, but somehow subconsciously process it? So it's as if there is a uniqueness of the position we're in that can't be avoided, and no box of language should contain it. I feel this will be the honor of the future, that we struggled through so many belief and linguistic wars that now in the future generations they're going to notice the boxes of language. They're going to notice the suffering of the ideological entity. In the chat section, Yathink says it's the mind rejuvenating the fractured heart while repairing the injured brain, retaining the nervous system. So that's incredibly heavy statement to, compact statement, Yathink. But when you say it's the mind rejuvenating the fractured heart while repairing the injured brain, retraining the nervous system, while repairing the injured brain, retraining the nervous system. So, in other words, the mind is rejuvenating the heart and repairing the injuries of the brain. So technically, I think you're saying that you see the mind rejuvenating the heart to be simultaneous with the brain changing. So when a person's, let us say, heart changes, or their emotional axis changes, their whole nervous system is like, whoa. That's the thing about reality. It has a complexity that doesn't seem to have one answer. That means I think the wiser the philosopher was, the less they were looking for an answer, the more they were trying to find the right question. For me, answers were something in my youth I wanted. I wanted answers to things. I wanted knowledge, you know? But here's the thing. In this life, what you want in your inner realms is instant. In the outer realms is a journey. That means the person can close their eyes and be like, okay, I want to be a millionaire, for example, something like that. Do you know? And then they got to think about, for example, Steve Harvey was talking about this, where he was saying as if you got to sell something a million times, even if it's a dollar, you know? So the whole point of it was that there is a sort of effort, a journey. So the mind is the map, okay? The mind is the map, and the body is the journey to get to the map, right? And the soul is the treasure, poetically. The soul is the inner treasure. That means, imagine right now you had read all the books in the world, every great teacher in existence had given you its blessings. You had all sorts of extraterrestrial knowledge. Aliens that came and were like, all right, you're cool, here, have access to all the alien knowledge. You know, let's say even an AI was connected to your brain and you knew everything in existence. That means when you looked at existence, you were like, yeah, been there, done that, you know, like as if like you know it, you know? Then the only thing left is a treasure that is not an object. That is why I'm saying we got to usher in an era of advanced communication. I mean, I've declared it since 2020, technically now it's beginning somehow. Pretty much there is a sound-based, let us say, reality, and we let us say there is, yeah, a sound in brackets invisible reality, and then we have a particle based, sound is a wave, then we say we have a particle based reality, and we'll call that the visible dimension, the visible realm. So that means the mind is treating, it is looking into, the mind is experiencing existence as multidimensional. The body is the shadow of the mind for the mind which needed the body to get here. And of course, you got whoever's listening, dear listeners, please keep in mind I'm one person in a universe of a billion trillion stars, just sharing models I've come up with so far. You know, a lot of this life is not about right or wrong. The right and wrong history only knows the answer to that. That means technically none of us know what we do is right. I mean, we know instantly as a sort of feedback, but like, I mean, aside from that, if you wanted to see the long-term morality of your actions, you would never know, you know? A question has speed, I find, based on the urgency of if it needs an answer right away or if it doesn't, you know? That means, you know what it is? It's like living on this planet is a series of calculations. And these calculations start off with first noticing how the outer realms are moving. And then the inner realms move. So first the outer realms move, then the inner realms move. When the inner realms move, the inner realms can expand their movement. That means you can experience a moment in your life and have many years of your life pass by, suddenly that moment to resurface. You know? Right now we are idolizing knowledge, not realizing knowledge's idol is the unknown. This is why when it comes to the inner realms, for the artist, imagination can be as real as reality. But if you see reality first, then of course you will deny imagination because you're not familiar with it. I feel that subjects come and go quicker than objects. That means I could sit in a day and feel less. I'm changing less as an object, and so many thoughts have just passed through the day. You know what I mean? Chung Tzu says thoughts are like leaves on a tree. You know, they change, they come and go. Similarly, there is way more experience as thoughts. Now, if the person is treating their self as a thought, and you have many thoughts throughout the day, technically that means you are many selves. So if you think you're a thought, you experience selfhood. What that means is the same moment I'm thinking I'm a strong person is the same moment I can think I'm a weak person. The same moment I think I'm a weak person is the moment where I can suddenly notice I can be strong. You know? Sometimes you need failure so you know where to look at for the success. Like the failure gives you and just adds to your database of just looking at the situation, your knowledge of the situation, and you see ahead. Kind of like when you drive. You know, when we drive something, we see further ahead in the window, front view window, windshield. We look through that and we see ahead. We see what's happening on the road like a Tetris game, and we adjust. Do you know? Similarly, I feel this whole notion that the soul was using the mind as a steering wheel for the vehicle of the body in ancient times, and the soul was pure unknown, and the body was pure known, and the mind was somewhere in the middle. I would say it's kind of like that. The way we are articulating situations, like literally before I say these statements, it's as if I have lived them in my inner realms. I remember I had a teacher. This man was a savage. Of course, he was a calculus teacher. This man in his like 60s, like dressed like as if he knew Albert Einstein, you know. And he was actually a very cool teacher, very knowledgeable teacher. But he had this thing. Any student in his class who was behind or who was slower than the rest, he would come up to him and say, if you got to go any slower, you got to speed up to stop. And the whole class would laugh, and he would say this joke every time, you know, just literally, it was an undying joke in the class, everybody was like, literally, like the teacher was like the godfather of the grades, and everybody was like, yes, yes sir, you know. I feel the speed of the mind, we have free will. Do you know, imagine right now we could only move our bodies, but we couldn't choose like to project a thought. We have that ability. Just like we can move our hands, we can close our eyes and envision. That ability of envisioning is the inner realms, and it is so new. Our species has no idea how to treat itself like a field of intelligence yet, but I feel in the future we will. Now check this out. If we say what is faster than the speed of light, okay, would be something that suddenly will not appear as existent. Do you know what I mean? We couldn't see it if something is moving faster than the speed of light. Now, if we say something moves faster than the speed of light, we can't, there is nothing there to be seen for there to be any sort of measurement. Okay? So that means something that goes faster than the speed of light, there's no one to say anything, nothing to be said. Sort of non-experience. So we say moments where we actually don't have any sort of, we have a non-experience while existing, is technically experiencing what it feels like in our inner realm to be faster than light. What I mean by that is the mind, and I honestly don't know why those four letters have come to be this word, but you know, the known body is like the outline of the coloring book, let's say. The mind is the color, and mm, and let us say the soul is the hand drawing. Now the soul is unknown, so really we have to find a way to value unknown being in the face of whatever we've known to do. What that means is, as Terence McKenna spoke about an archaic revival, that was another fancier way of saying history repeats itself. But it was as if certain, but it's a revival. It's the revival of the ancient in modern times. So in ancient times, they were more like unknown multidimensional minds, right? Now we went through a phase where if there is an archaic revival, perhaps it is the archaic revival of the unknown experiencer. We have been constantly containing our experiences in the way we have been defining objects. That means honestly, it's like a massive naming agenda. It was as if, like, you know how like in the Oprah Winfrey show there was an episode where Oprah was giving cars to people, like, you get a car and you get a car and you too, you get a car. It was like literally, it was like at some point the species was like, you get a name, and you get a name, and this object gets a name, and this color gets a name, and that sky gets a name, and everything gets a name. And it was like, do you know what I mean? We started naming everything, you know, and so casually forgetting that there was a silence and stillness before the emergence of any sort of dualistic simulation or narrative. You know, so questions that were faster than their answers is another sense of the unknown was here before the known. And if the unknown is dynamic and the known is static, we can say that anytime the person believes in something, I don't want to say believe, but let me say anytime life becomes like an unchanging photo on a wall for you, that literally means you're not in life anymore. You have missed the boat. You have missed the train of the presence of life, because ultimately it's just granting access for experiences continuity. That is it. Because what is energy doing? It's expressing itself as an object and a subject. Right now, you know what I mean? And the object is very important because how comfortable the body is suggests the speaker, you know. So if we treated this body as a vehicle for an attributeless attention that is just being the presence of consciousness and energy, that means we are a kind of undying witness of the changing realm. We are like the eyes of higher dimensions. And these dimensions, when I say higher, it goes beyond the hierarchy. Our sense of higher dimensions is based on how we limit ourselves. So we have to totally consider that other dimensions could totally have nothing to do with what we have so far developed about our knowledge. You know? This is why the best thing we can advance is academia has to focus on skill. Skill is the best gift. I mean, honestly, would you not want to be in an advanced and skilled civilization, or a civilization where people are just, you know, there's no progress? You know, there is this view that so many people feel it's all right, man. I just do what I just live my, you know, simple life, and I'll let the world do its complex progress thing. You know. But I'll be honest, we are the input of the civilization. If we stop caring about civilization, and imagine 8 billion beings stopped building it, like what would that mean? What, like the birds, the squirrels, like bears, like the animals come and other species come and build the civilization, you know? No, it's only us. You know, bees build their hives, ants have their hills, wolves have their dens, and lions have their pride, you know? We are moving to, I think, for the first time, a neutral counterculture shift. Usually the countercultural shifts are like, all right, multidimensional, no, singular. Then the person's like, no, multidimensional, then singular. That's kind of like how history has been. But eventually the counterculture has come to the, let's say, neo-neutral, the neo-neutral witness. The neo-neutral rare countercultural shift. Like, here's the thing. We are building our civilization indirectly in the image of our nature. We don't realize it. You know, a lot of things that human beings think it's unique to the individual personality, the personality is as unique as the nature is, as the dirt on the ground is. You know, that means it's like the day I realized that we're made of particles and elements, it was a very hilarious day. I was like, all right, whatever identity the person has in this realm, you realize you're just stuff on some level. Do you know what I mean? Like the human being is just, it's matter being here. And for me, I mean, think about it. Just think about how phenomenal this idea is. That there was a rock in a vacuum in the middle of nowhere, okay? There's a rock in the middle of nowhere, and on this rock, cells began growing in such and evolving in such complex ways that eventually Alexander Graham Bell made the telephone. And literally think about what that meant. Two people speaking on the telephone, or me giving you this podcast live stream. Technically, a complex set of atoms, particles in one part of the world is talking to another complex set of particles from another part of the world. So elementally speaking, it's like it's so next level being human. It's just surreal. It's so surreal. I'm like, literally, we got to start calling reality surreality. You know, it's so surreal. It's like, and so then it comes the fear, because every great change brings with it fear. You can't change and not fear, because the fear is the detachment of the past. That means many people don't realize it. If you dare to live your own honest life, regardless of another person's input, imagine there was a treasure chest on this, with the greatest treasure chest on this planet. You open this treasure chest, and inside it, what the treasure was an ability to choose. Imagine your free will is an achievement. Then you'll know how to live in life. For me, being human is an incredibly advanced process of nature, advanced system in nature. We are like a ridiculous data processor. A data processor that even till now we can't create technology that reflects us. Okay, guys, so in the chat section, my attention. So, you think there's too many comments, I don't know which one to respond to. The skill I was talking about, yes, physical and non-physical, those are two separate things until they become the same moment. That means you can close one eye, look from the left eye, you can close the left eye, look from the right eye, but eventually you'll be like, all right, you can have the same view. And even from a mystical context, you get access to the sight of your moment. That means there were some people who it wasn't just sight through their eyes, it was that they were the presence of the whole moment. So whatever way the moment changed, they would know. You think says, how do you, for example, view the contributions of someone like Stephen Hawking? Stephen Hawking, of course, he's like you want to know who 50-year-old scientists have posters of in their room? Stephen Hawking is an incredible mind. He's an incredible extractor of models for how the universe is seen. The Big Bang Theory comes from Stephen Hawking, if I'm correct. I've seen some interviews, of course. I mean, Stephen Hawking, I know his contributions, but to some degree, but I don't know his. I don't know who he is like in person. Like not in person. I mean, I can't. He seems to me more like a very literally he's in an existential position where he's been watching things for a while. So I could totally see how incredible his level of sight could be. Do you know? That means Stephen Hawking had such an incredible patience that I think in his mind, in that spare time he had, he was attempting the greatest questions. He was literally living in his inner realms. So Stephen Hawking is an example of a human being whose inner realms contributed ridiculously. Another great example is Helen Keller. And she has quotes that are fascinating. And this was a girl who was born blind and deaf, and she had some next level teacher. So that's what I would tell you. You think in the chat section. You see, here's the thing. I mean, of course, my philosophy is a bit different. I mean, regardless of who it is, I treat the inner realms as different. So when I see another human being, I don't act like I understand them. I understand some things based on expression, based on my own eyes, but I know that deep down, just like how nobody can see how I'm looking at myself, I can't see how others are looking at themselves. And when you realize that, you free yourself from needing to have to be something in a moment. You actually become a human being in a moment. A lot of people don't have this because their childhood they're conditioned to be polite robots, you know. I'm looking at a bird right now, guys. And the bird, it just does one activity, looks around, does another activity, looks around, does another activity, looks around. And it's like the human advantage is we don't have to endlessly be in a game of like chess game with our environment. We could sit back and actually strategize. We can experience moments of the presence of our own mind. Like, how does it feel having your intelligence? I mean, if you think everybody's DNA is different, that means that it's like, how can we have one educational system for 8 billion different DNAs? That means 8 billion different eyes, different conditioning, different cultural programs, different familiarities, different passions and strengths. You know, right now, people are going towards the educational system. And it's going to become a situation where educational systems go to people in the sense of no longer looking for, like right now, I honestly feel we need storytellers to come and change the way we have been telling ourselves stories of what is reality. Because if we don't change that story, we can't literally experience a new mindset. You know, back in the day, I could totally see why they were so sensitive to the dimensions of the realm. Because there was nothing else they could do. They had no distractions. They had no computer or TV screens. They had to travel for information. Information wouldn't travel to them instantly, you know? So life had an incredible effort component. So guys, Charles asks a legendary question in the chat section. How do you change a story? You stop telling the same story to yourself. You stop being uh, a fool of your own impatience. That's one of the biggest blessings. It's such a great feeling when the person stops being a fool to themselves. To the world, you can. It's undeniable. Eventually, a person does something. Like if too many people, if 8 billion people see one person do something, you think 8 billion people are going to have the same reaction? No. So there's eventually, the more people see something, the more reactions there exist. You know, the more dimensions there are to the artwork. But I would say the best way to change a story is literally your attention has to change. That means something has to happen to the character, something has to happen to the setting, something has to happen to the nature of the reality, you know. Because in writing, my brother personally is, I have a twin brother, and he has written some incredible novels. Honestly, my science fiction was, he inspired me to actually. It was a tribute to his work. His novels and whatnot. In one of my twin brother's novels, he had done something remarkable, where he had created a dialogue between the character he had wrote in the story and in that universe of the story and himself. Do you know? As if he had made the author the actual author. Do you know? The sort of god of the universe that communicates to the character in the book. Do you know? So you can change the story from the concept and context, or you just go a different dimension. You see, right now we're so fixed, you know? What if in the future generations realize every human being had been experiencing what every other human being on the planet has been experiencing all the time, but it was so in our unconscious, and our consciousness was such like the tip of the iceberg that we had forgotten of the rest that we could not see. Can a subjective experience happen faster than an objective existence? If it does, if that's the case, Rene Descartes was accurate. Rene Descartes' mind body dualism was like Rene Descartes' eyes were on the money, you know, like his eyes were on the prize. That means he had caught, like, for me, if we can find a way to clarify this, even have some sort of scientific establishment, because the issue with science is that it's chained to the language. So philosophers would have to come to save scientists, and then designers will come and sorry. Philosopher, the scientist is. I'm just using this as metaphoric. Just keep that in mind. The scientific lens is going to find itself limited by language. Therefore, philosophers are going to come like the older sibling of the scientist, the philosopher. Now, after the philosopher, there comes, I would say, or let me say it like this. Sorry, I'll say it this way. We have the younger sibling, which is the scientist. We have then another older sibling, the scientist. Then we have the psychologist. Then we have the philosopher. Then, so scientist, the older sibling is the psychologist. Older than that is the philosopher. Beyond the philosopher, I wanted to say the shaman. Pretty much what I'm trying to say is that the branches of knowledge, as they shake, they will find their center. They will find their common denominator. I feel in the future, educational systems may be designed where classrooms are designed where there's actually three teachers that are a team: a psychologist, a philosopher, and a scientist. Do you know, three teachers in every classroom? Three teachers are there. Okay. Now, these three teachers sit on one side of the classroom, the students sit on the other side of the classroom, and the whole point is that they have to beat the teachers in this intellectual challenge, and the teachers have to beat the students in this intellectual challenge. This way, the whole classroom instantly unites. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, you know? So then it would be a situation of exploration and inquiry. We think that we just have to feed the child's mind information. No, the child has to explore to recreate the information structure for itself, or the child will not comprehend it. That means to create an educational system that is inspiring explorers is the healthiest educational system. Anything else besides that, whether the educational system is aimed at generating laborers, or if the educational system is aimed at trying to create a certain outcome for the economical sector, you see, we need some people who, you need some skills for work, go get those skills and work. And then we need some people who actually are caring, who you can say are the big dogs of academia, who have to actually now take the focus to the advancement of knowledge. That means the only way to keep the past alive in the future is by seeing them interconnected. The only way. That's why I'm talking about the archaic. Because the only way to sometimes keep the value is to relate it to the modern. Back in the day, the ancient books had no way to relate to modernity because it hadn't happened. Only from modernity we could look at the archaic and find patterns. You think says, would he still be here rather than just be lingering in the wings on the minds of many astrophysically inclined scientific human assumptions? Who are you talking about, you think? I don't know. But anyway. I'm just saying, guys, that there's many unanswered questions. And when I say unanswered questions, the question technically doesn't have one answer. just like five people saying, like somebody, one of them saying, "Hey guys, did you see a UFO?" And some people are gonna be like, "No, man, we didn't see a UFO." And to one of them might be like, "Yeah, man, I saw it." Imagine it's something like that. You know, so much of it is just value systems. So when I see a person, I'm like, I could instantly tell what they value by the first desire they go to. That means here's the downside of chasing your desire is that you instantly reveal the limitations of your need. Do you know what I mean? That means a person's behavior reveals how they have things to themselves or how they want things. Rabindranath Tagore says, "I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted and behold, service was joy." Service is the evolution of the youthful pleasure-seeking joy. But now it has to come to a collective service, and the civilization is behind. That means right now, the minds of human beings are ready to actually live in a very high-speed advanced civilization. But it's unupdated on the outside. Like literally, we're living in brick squares. This shit has to stop. We need sky cities. We need to find new options. Architecture, like what are architects doing? Like, for me, it was like the first person who made like a. There should be a law that no platonic solid like building could be made. All buildings have to be like modern art. If you see life as an opportunity, free will has to generate meaning. If you see life as a burden, then it's meaningless because you are not generating the meaning in accordance to your free will. That's the issue. That's the whole thing, that we're missing an authentic dimension to the social spheres, you know? Authenticity means not fearing the death of your inner realm, self, of your subjective self. That's the thing about life, you know? This is how you know some people, the people who actually really see life, and those people who don't. Those people who don't see life, they still want something to move them in life. Those people who actually see life, they start moving themselves. As they move themselves, their dimension opens up as a relationship. So the more you live on this planet, the more the momentum of your life is evoking a sort of relationship with the, let us say poetically, the Gaian mind. For me, nature is alive. That means there will come a moment where if I have to transition out of this plane of existence, I will say also my goodbye to the planet, and that would be just my own silent stare at this world. You know how every time I have slept, I have been strangely training like a Shaolin monk for the void. We all have. We all have actually incredible training in altering our attention between different states of mind. That means literally like a manual car, imagine, but only with 3 gears rather than six. Right now, it's like life is ridiculous. They say 1/3 of it you're asleep. Can you imagine that? It's like, what's the meaning of life? 1/3 of the meaning is to sleep. What's the other third? The other third of it is to move around pretty much. And then what's the last? The 1/3 is where you can actually ask questions. You know? So that's the phenomenal thing, that it's literally, we're just entering a dimension, a plane, the earth plane. And now we have to be the pilots of this plane. And I'm speaking to the pilots. These talks are just a lighthouse for all those human beings that feel it's worth it to see what an advanced civilization looks like. Because that's the thing. That's the winning idea. That is the ultimate idea. I will tell you some ultimate ideas. The species, I feel, regardless in the future, will inevitably come to these conclusions. One, 8 billion creatures on a sphere in the middle of nowhere. The only thing they can do, that is the coolest thing they can do, is to see what an advanced civilization is. So an advanced civilization is the game of literally a civilization advancing. So that's an inevitability. It will get there. I'm just like a blue jay on the branch, being like, all right, let's work on this. I have this model, guys, before I end off. Receive simply, express complex. Express complexly. You know, that means in the outer realms, don't fear complexity, be fascinated by it. In the inner realms, don't fear simplicity, be fascinated by it. Fascinate your way out of your own suffering, because this world is too big and unknown, and everybody can spend some percentage of their life trying to figure out something for the overall collective tribe. Guys, Charles says something nice in the chat section. We are the neighborhood at the tail end of the galaxy, the new kids on the block. Charles Godwin says that. Yeah, the new kids on the block. Yeah, that's a definitely nice way to see depth in that sentence. Yeah, we're the new kids on the block. Recently we can talk. That means the new kids on the block, imagine actually new kids to like some block, like some neighborhood, and those new kids at the same time being simultaneously a new species for the first time in the neighborhood of the cosmos. So Charles, I agree with you. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Pretty much I wanted to just suggest that there could be a chance that our minds are moving faster than our bodies. They're moving so fast, though, that if it's faster than light, it explains how we're attributeless. It explains how language is just the mind's game. And beyond language, the soul's game is event based. It's experience, direct experiential events. That means if the rug's going to be pulled from underneath your feet, practice jumping. Practice mindfulness, noticing how your intelligence moves, how it is alive, how it can be before it does, how it does things before it even can be things. In my inner realms, I move at speeds that's different than my outer realms. In my inner realms, there's a certain, when I notice that there's an unconditional factor to it, I played around with the intensity of visualization. After a point, you're gonna, if through the exercising of the fascinated mind, let's say you wondering about something, pretty much if everybody was a discoverer or was trying to discover something about the realm, eventually it will become a position where I don't know, it's like right now we're caring for new ideas. There will come a time where we will really cherish new experiences. Because honestly, there was okay, whatever, I'll keep it for another talk. I'll make a note of this. Pretty much, guys. I'm going to be giving a talk in the future. I just made a note of it. I titled it "Perceiving the Neo Surveillance State Through a New Light." The future neo, perceiving the future neo surveillance state through a new light. Excuse me. Anyways, the whole. Let me kind of loop around the talk and then I'll come back. Or I don't know. How would I say this? This basketball game between an object feeling it's being a subject and a subject feeling it's moving as an object. We could totally ignore the mind, and in the future, when they really look at the mind, they're going to be at such a different evolutionary position that we're going to become forgotten knowledge. We're going to become forgotten. That means if you don't live with the world, you actually slowly stop being in it. Like how they say like a person works to deserve something, to feel like they deserve something, they've earned it. So it's like there's something to about living through the day. Imagine even if you were on an island where you were expressing or exerting some level of effort towards something throughout the day. You know, for me, it was like I just sat down and I saw that I could compartmentalize different visions into different projects. So usually I set up a lot of projects for myself, and then every day, whenever I can contribute anything to each project, I do and I maintain it. You know, So in the chat section, you think says, how would you respond if an alien pulled over and asked, do you want to go for a ride? I would ask the alien where it's heading, where it's going. And based on the answer of the alien, I would be like, my answer would probably be no from the beginning, but I would check to see what they would say if I had said yes, you know? It's like, do you want to go for a ride? It's like, where? It's like, who are you people, Or if they're aliens, I gotta be like, who are you aliens, Honestly, no, because the thing is, for me, theosophy or extraterrestrial contact, I talk about it as a sort of archetypal evolutionary point of our cultures. But on another level, I don't really entertain individualism that much. There's a way I exist how can I tell you? There's many moments where I am not a thought. There is no name, there is no personality. I'm just being there. Just like how everything in existence is just existing. So when you stop actually technically let me say it like this, there's moments in life where your inner realms are like a pond where they have no ripples. In those moments, it's literally like you are nature. And it comes through waves. I've sat down in nature for a while. Toronto has a lot of nice parks, And in those sort of meditative moments, I would say I would stop being a person, and I would just look at what everything in nature was doing, which was nothing. It was just abiding, like it was just breathing, just move. Like, do you know what I mean? There was no extra dimensional processing of the value of the future and whatnot. When you live in nature, it's like it's silent. It has no agenda. Nature has, like, what agenda does nature have? You know, Nature for me is like, it's at best like a performer. Its agenda is momentary. There is a quote Rabindranath Tagore has. He says the butterfly counts moments, not months, and has time enough. Oh, sorry, the butterfly lives moments, not months, and has time enough. Something like that. And one of the most incredible quotes that Rabindranath Tagore has is really, let me see the quote. I think it was, beauty is truth's eyes when she beholds herself in a perfect mirror. I think that was the quote. Beauty, Tagore, eyes, quote. Beauty, no, sorry. Oh, okay, there we go. Sorry. Beauty is truth's smile when she beholds her own face in a perfect mirror. Beauty is truth's smile when she beholds her own face in a perfect mirror. But Rabindranath Tagore is speaking to a sort of mystical context. That means truth's smile is the contentment of the realization man is nature before he is man. And there comes a natural beauty where the person is just like content with the simplicity of the realm. It doesn't need to change a lot of things, but they have the ability to see the change. You know, guys, actually, why not? I'm gonna add to the episode. I'm gonna go into a random quote tunnel, poetry tunnel of these poems I wrote. I don't know, I'm feeling kind of like a creative flow right now. I'm gonna just go with it. All right, guys, I'll be right back. Okay. So guys, this is a poetry tunnel, a poetry collection of mine called Immortal Tears. I'm just going to read some random poems from it. Endless seminars. You have gained a very great degree in nothing. Are you honored by the unknown yet? What you do not know shall free you one day. But is cosmic consciousness counting? With what fingers has the palm been held? Can love transcend all immeasurable qualities? The void began to groan one night, elbows nudging neighboring galaxies. The totality of existence couldn't sleep peacefully with the sound of every snore. Who is more free than a child unborn? Endless seminars will not change the gift of death through an eternal dream. Be your awakening. Behind your eyes, all doors are the key. The next poem is The Leaf That Bit the Caterpillar. How can the sun dance when the moon cries at night? How can the lords of karma forgive themselves? Has transcendental communication become a reality yet? In the emporium of lost beliefs, the leaves of dismay crumble at the grace of every passing season. Who is more free than a thought unborn? The caterpillar perhaps bit first. This next poem is called Sinless Seer. Once a saint confronted the replacement of letters. Are the ambitions of all words empty on the empty page? Why do you suffer when joy is right here? There are some men who forget their shadow only to see all reality as dance through one absolute form. Can the mystic collapse before he is picked up? What is the attention of a lotus once it is opened? Some truth seekers forget that they are the only truth. Could the only secret this cosmos has to offer be within you? This next poem is called A Cosmic Mirror. A Cosmic River. I don't know why I called it a river. It's called a Cosmic River, anyways. As the heavens roar clarity in the night, for dawn has already given its message, there is a love here that will dissolve before it has faded. Can transcendence be more than a dream in an awakening? The apocalypse was crying one night, how are the free so free? Suddenly the clouds opened and thunder began bolting. You must run after what you're running from. How does the imposition of a position bring turbulence to the untouchable cradle? Love the God of direct experience. For there is nothing more divine than a cosmic mirror. And the talk's called a cosmic river. That means it's endless. This other poem is called Utter Convergence. What gives mankind the kindness to continue? Where has truth crawled into the shadow of fear? Rise beyond temptation and confront the temporary tempest. All hidden paths are journeyed through unhidden eyes. In utter convergence, immortality wipes its tears with faces that were never born. Is ideology speaking too loud at the table? Honor humanity as it runs through your veins. A human is not just a human. A human is omniscience looking in the mirror of transparent thought. Do not be caught by thinkers that never existed. The purest lovers of this universal sector are selfless. The purest lovers of this universal sector are selfless. Holy shit, I wrote this in 2016. Yeah, that means selflessly, conduct the moment. Conduct yourself selflessly. What that means is the mind is like the whole moment's awareness, and you are occurring in your own mind sphere, if we can say. Your body is in the mobility of the field of your mind sphere, So think of every person having some sort of energetic, like in some, I don't know, let's say some animals are looking at us and they see us not as people, they see us as orbs of energy. You know what I mean? Or electromagnetic orbs or something, Electromagnetic orbs. I'm saying, like, you know what I mean? I mean, like, it's like there could be a huge potential that we are being seen from a dimension that we can't fathom, yet that dimension can potentially be a totally new layout, That means there could be a dimension where it's just pure geometry. Everything I'm saying, sound, light, everything is just pure geometry. And one last poem. Seasons of Passage. Has the mystic's touch found the untouched? Has enlightenment turned into the light in all our eyes? There are many escapades, but fate has always known how to dance. For when she moves, all ideology turns into the dust of dawn, shaken and pure. Who in this life has allowed life to you? The mirror may seem like a job interview, but the only song is the emptiness that waves back at all goodbyes. Your moment is the only passage of any season. Do not be fooled. Gods exist because man could not keep his eyes closed. Transparency is the only dance of an immortal soul. We are complete as collective beings. It is just the individualism that needs to be cared for. Who knew we have to care for ourselves so that when we see patterns of ourselves in the world, we can somehow care for it for the emergence of the advanced civilization. We're kind of like ants without the anthill, bees without the beehive. Like, our beehive is so unupdated. Technically, it's not a beehive. It's a tragedy. Shakespearean tragedy civilization 1.0. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. And remember, if there is no idea that can contain life, in an instant moment of your breath, the world is as alive as you are. Your mind is the soul of the moment, of your moment, Blessings.